Masto.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the ranking member, thank you. Clearly, such an important conversation. I thank you to the panelists for being here. I am glad we are really continuing to work on and addressing permitting reform discussion. You know, I just had a subcommittee hearing here that I chaired, and I talked about a perfect example of this is we have a industrial park in Southern Nevada. We're trying to build out. We have companies coming there. Unfortunately, in Nevada, over 80% of the land's owned by the federal government. So for each company that wants to bring infrastructure to that site, they have to get a permit from the Department of Interior, which takes at least 3 years. That's each company, including a utility, to lay the same right-of-way, the same pipe, the same fiber. They each have to get it. I mean, we've gotten really out of control here when it comes to permitting. We need to streamline it. We need to work together for the very reasons that we're talking about. And in Nevada, we need to work together so that we can continue these clean energy projects. Nevada is the #1 solar economy in the country. We have the potential here to really lean into our clean energy and renewables, and we can't really slow it down by not having really the sufficient permitting that is necessary and faster permitting. So I'm all about having this conversation, and I thank you all for being here. Mr. Stanek, let me ask you this. In your written testimony, you touched on your experiences with the Joint Federal-State Task Force on electric transmission. And stakeholders in my state of Nevada have spoken to the benefits of this collaboration and coordination, and it has really produced efficiencies that we have all been talking about. My question to you is, as the permitting reform conversation continues, can you elaborate on further opportunities to ensure that states maintain a strong position in future transmission siting decisions?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. The state task force has made a lot of progress, and one of the charter members supporting it was your chairman in Nevada of the PUC there. This has been an issue where the states have historically had exclusive rights to site energy infrastructure projects, particularly electric transmission in their states. There is some concern that there's a potential power grab or preemption of state authority. So it's a needle that state regulators are very sensitive to thread and be mindful of. I'm a former regulator now by about 4 weeks, but it's an issue that I know they are thoughtful of. They're working with their counterparts at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to discuss these issues every couple of months. They just had a meeting last week on transmission technologies. So it's an active engagement. We all want the same goal: more streamlined, efficient permitting processes of energy infrastructure, because, as I stated at the outset, we can't wait anymore. This yellow flashing light is soon going to be a red flashing light.
Right. And while I have you, can you talk a little bit about, you elaborate on your scenario-based regional planning framework? What is that? What do you mean by that?
For too long, the transmission and grid operators have been planning just in time for reliability needs to make sure that the lights stay on, which is very important. But planning for a longer-term horizon, let's say 20 years, and looking at various options and scenarios that could occur based on a 100% clean energy environment, a 50% clean energy environment, is not what the RTOs, ISOs, and transmission authorities have generally done. We've discovered now that that is very important. FERC's current rulemaking is examining that. But looking at different scenarios and trying to pick the one that we most expect to occur on the horizon will allow us to be more efficient with the dollars spent where the projects are actually built.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Smith, you outlined some near-term steps that industry and policymakers should consider taking to accelerate the pace of new generation transmission. You talked about the 3 Ps. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that and why that is important?
Yes, and we think it all starts with permitting, and I agree with what Jason just said with respect to modernizing and expanding planning scenarios. We think that's important because of the changes in supply, the changes in demand that are occurring. Weather is changing. We need to include more expansive weather scenarios in this planning process. And, in the end, if we have a longer planning process, it will drive more efficient outcomes. Shorter planning processes tend and can result in more piecemeal grid, which, if we're thinking about long-term investments and thinking about, customer affordability in the long term, it's important to lengthen that planning timeline.
Thank you. And then very quickly, Mr. Tepley, because you know the West very well, I'm Southern Nevada, 114 degrees. Should we be thinking about in this extreme weather that we are seeing in the western states? How can we enhance that transmission planning, or better thinking about the weather as it impacts what we need for our transmission needs?
Unfortunately, Williams is not in the business of building electric transmission, so I'm not sure that I can give you a good answer for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We've got some cool temperatures in West Virginia that we could help you with. maybe.